You think you know what it's like to be on a cruise ship? The freedom, the ocean, the luxury. But in 2025, that freedom quietly began to shrink. Behind the polished smiles and glittering lights, cruise lines started banning more things than ever before. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. The ocean has always demanded respect, and in 2025, it demanded change. It began quietly, no headlines, no big announcements, just new rules slipped into fine print. Guests arriving at ports found familiar comforts suddenly confiscated. Items that once symbolized freedom and relaxation now flagged as potential risks. Cruise lines didn't want to talk about it, but crew members noticed. The ship's storage rooms, once packed with forgotten luggage and supplies, now overflowed with things that weren't allowed anymore. No more power strips, no more small appliances, no more personal gadgets drawing extra power. It started after a series of near misses, fires that never made the news, short circuits that almost didn't get caught in time. One tiny spark in a cabin could ripple through miles of wiring. It's easy to forget. A cruise ship is a floating city powered by one heartbeat of electricity. One mistake, one overload, and paradise turns into panic. So the bans began. Hair straighteners, kettles, electric blankets, gone. The reason? Too many guests were plugging in too much, too fast. And when you're in the middle of the ocean, there's no fire department coming to save you. But that was just the start. The next wave of bans wasn't about safety, it was about control. In 2025, cruise lines grew obsessed with stability. Stability of the environment, of the ship's balance, and of passenger behavior. Everything had to be predictable, monitored, contained. What guests didn't realize was that cruise ships now have sensors everywhere. Air quality, cabin temperature, motion detection, even sound. It's not for spying, it's for safety. But once the systems were installed, they began to shape the rules. Cruise lines noticed patterns, noise complaints at night, unusual odors, weight shifts caused by crowd movement during deck parties. And soon after, new restrictions appeared, rules against bringing large speakers, drones, or even certain LED lights. Why? Because in one 2024 incident, a single drone crashed into a radar dome during docking. It cost $500,000 to repair and delayed thousands of passengers for hours. So in 2025, every major cruise line banned drones entirely. Next came the balcony bans. Guests loved their balconies, that private slice of ocean air, that little world of freedom. But freedom comes with risk. Over the years, too many balcony incidents occurred. People climbing railings for photos, items being thrown or blown off into the sea. Every cruise line knew the truth. One careless act can become viral tragedy in seconds. Now, rules are stricter than ever. No hanging clothes outside, no leaning too far, no climbing, and absolutely no unauthorized photography from restricted angles. Some cruise lines even installed sensors on balcony doors that trigger silent alarms if left open too long, to prevent sea spray damage, but also to monitor safety. And then came the ban no one expected: certain fragrances, sprays, and diffusers. It might sound strange, but it happened after a passenger with severe allergies suffered a reaction from another guest's room scent diffusing through the air vents. The ship diverted, medical teams intervened, and since then, ships started quietly confiscating diffusers, plug-in scents, and incense burners. One ex-crew member said it best: "Cruise ships are like lungs. One breath in the wrong place, and everyone feels it." But here's where it gets even stranger. By 2025, cruise lines also started banning a surprising new category: food. Not the buffet kind, personal snacks, small meals, outside food. Why? Pests, customs, and contamination. With global routes connecting ports from the Caribbean to Europe to Asia, even a small piece of fruit brought on board can introduce pests that could spread from one ship to another. Now, many ports require strict inspections, and cruise lines had no choice but to ban nearly all outside food items. Even the famous birthday cake tradition changed. Guests used to bring special cakes on board for celebrations, but now, nearly every cruise line bans outside baked goods completely. Why? contamination risk, allergens, and inconsistent labeling. But behind every rule, there's a story. A small spill of homemade cake icing once caused a cabin electrical short. A misplaced candle set off an alarm that evacuated half a deck. Each little story adds up to one thing: control through prevention. Then came the technology bans. In 2025, the cruise world faced a new digital problem: streaming devices and small projectors. Passengers wanted to stream their own entertainment, bringing mini projectors, streaming sticks, and routers. What they didn't realize is that these devices interfere with the ship's internal Wi-Fi network. So now, in 2025, they're banned too. It's not about privacy, it's about system overload. Cruise Wi-Fi is a carefully balanced web of signals stretched over thousands of users. One rogue signal can crash sections of the network. The next bans hit even closer to home: certain clothing items. That might sound absurd, but consider this. In 2024, several viral videos showed passengers wearing swimsuits or inappropriate attire inside formal dining areas. The backlash online was fierce. Cruise lines, desperate to protect their image, rewrote dress code enforcement policies. Now, guests can be denied entry to restaurants if not dressed according to new standards that are now far stricter than before. And speaking of image, selfies changed the rules too. In 2025, cruise lines began restricting where you can take certain photos. Too many passengers had wandered into crew-only zones, engineering areas, or restricted platforms just to snap the perfect shot. One wrong step in those areas can mean serious danger or damage. So new signs appeared: no photography beyond this point. It's not just about privacy anymore, it's about liability. Even decorations changed. Gone are the days when guests could hang door magnets, wreaths, or LED strips to mark their cabin doors. In 2025, most cruise lines banned all door and hallway decorations due to fire safety and emergency access. What once made the halls feel festive now poses a risk if power cables melt or adhesive blocks emergency signage. And for the crew, this has made life harder. One former cabin steward said that every year, passengers get more creative with ways to personalize cabins, and every year, more of those decorations end up confiscated. But some bans aren't about safety or decorum, some are about sustainability. In 2025, environmental rules reached new heights. Plastic bottles, straws, even single-use toiletries vanished. Passengers who arrive with disposable plastics are now asked to surrender them or repack them before boarding. The ocean's changing climate left cruise lines with no choice. They can't risk being labeled polluters, not after years of criticism. To many passengers, it feels restrictive, but in truth, it's survival. The industry can't afford another scandal. Every banned straw, every confiscated cup, it's all a shield against the next wave of bad press. Still, not every ban makes sense. Some are quietly controversial. Take the new limits on cabin gatherings. In 2025, several cruise lines introduced policies restricting how many guests can visit a single stateroom at once. It's about noise control, they say, safety in tight spaces. But some insiders suggest it's also about preventing filming, viral videos, live streams, unflattering content. Cruise lines now want to control not only what happens on board, but how it's seen. That's the hidden thread connecting all these changes: control. The ships are safer, yes. Cleaner, yes. But they're also more watched. Every light flicker, every open balcony door, every odd sound, logged, measured, archived. It's the price of progress. The passengers, meanwhile, never see it. They're on the top decks, laughing, sipping cold drinks, capturing sunsets for social media. But down below, deep in the ship's hidden decks, the systems hum and watch. And somewhere, behind a closed door in the bridge, an officer studies data from the day: energy usage, noise levels, guest behavior trends, all feeding into algorithms that decide what to ban next. In 2025, cruise life feels freer than ever, but in truth, it's never been more controlled. The music and the smiles hide a quiet truth. Every rule was written in response to something that once went wrong. Every ban carries the ghost of a moment when freedom crossed a line. Because on a ship in the middle of nowhere, even a small mistake can echo for miles. The thing about rules at sea is that they don't just appear out of nowhere. Every new restriction, every new prohibited item sign, it's written in saltwater and human error. And as the world sailed into 2025, cruise ships changed faster than most passengers realized. What began as a few harmless bans turned into something much bigger, a quiet revolution happening behind the closed doors of the world's largest floating resorts. It's not just about safety anymore. It's about control, about reputation, about survival. And in the second half of this story, the bans get even stranger. At first, passengers thought it was a rumor, the idea that cruise lines were banning too much luggage, but it wasn't fiction, it was physics. In 2024, engineers discovered that overloaded cabins, especially those stacked on the upper decks, were affecting the ship's weight balance. It wasn't huge, but it was measurable. So by 2025, new soft luggage limits appeared. Not on paper, not in bold letters, but in the quiet enforcement of embarkation staff who suddenly began checking bag weights. Some ships even installed hidden scales beneath the check-in conveyor belts. Passengers never knew. They just wondered why they were suddenly being asked to remove items or repack. Then there was the ban on certain shoes. To the average traveler, it sounded absurd, but slip and fall incidents had skyrocketed in 2024. Wet decks, glossy floors, and guests running between pool areas caused thousands of minor injuries. The solution? Ban high heels and hard-soled shoes from upper decks and pool zones. It wasn't written anywhere obviously, just tucked deep into the safety briefing that few passengers ever listened to. Yet, crew members were told to politely intervene if they saw someone walking across the deck in unsafe footwear. Cruise lines didn't want to make it sound restrictive, they just wanted to keep the illusion of carefree safety while quietly tightening control. Next came the digital bans, the ones nobody saw coming. In early 2025, several cruise ships suffered from viral network crashes. Passengers were using portable Wi-Fi hotspots and private VPNs, trying to bypass the expensive onboard internet. What they didn't realize was that these devices were interfering with the ship's communication systems. So now they're banned too. No portable routers, no Wi-Fi extenders, no local signal boosters. The ship's network must remain isolated for security, for stability, and for control. Crew members know it. There are quiet security sweeps, digital scans running through every deck, identifying unauthorized signals. Passengers never see it happen, but they feel it when their devices suddenly disconnect. And the bans kept spreading. Even paper changed. In 2025, cruise lines began phasing out printed materials almost completely. No more printed attendances, no paper daily schedules slipped under the cabin door. Instead, everything moved to apps. The reason wasn't just going green, it was data. When passengers check the app instead of reading paper, the cruise line learns what they're interested in, what they skip, how they move around the ship. It's information, and information is power. Some guests resisted, asking for paper copies of everything. But now, only a few lines still offer it. The rest banned printed materials outright, calling it waste reduction. And it is, but it's also the beginning of a new kind of cruise, one where your every preference is tracked and analyzed in real time. Even the wristbands passengers wear, the ones used for unlocking cabins and paying for drinks, now track location and behavior across the ship. They know when you're in your room, when you're on deck, when you're spending money. You can't ban what you don't see, but you can learn from it. Then came the environmental bans, the ones the cruise lines are proud of, but passengers often find frustrating. By 2025, single-use plastics are completely gone. So are disposable utensils, bottled water, and even some personal care products. But it didn't stop there. Now, even sunscreen is regulated. Certain chemical-based sunscreens, which can harm coral reefs, are forbidden on ships sailing through protected waters. Crew members check bottles at embarkation, confiscating any that contain banned ingredients. It might sound excessive, but when a cruise ship visits fragile ecosystems, one drop of the wrong chemical can cause damage far beyond its size. So sunscreen became the new cigarette, a small act that could harm the environment around you. And speaking of cigarettes, smoking rules changed too. Many cruise lines in 2025 eliminated most of their outdoor smoking areas. The few that remain are smaller, more isolated, and heavily monitored. The reason isn't moral judgment, it's logistics. Smoke interferes with air sensors, and complaints from non-smokers have tripled over the years. The ocean air may feel free, but now even that freedom comes with rules. But not all bans are about safety or environment. Some are about psychology. Take the ban on certain toys and gadgets. In 2025, you can no longer bring toy drones, electric scooters, or hoverboards. The reason is simple: they've caused too many accidents. One scooter battery caught fire in a hallway. Another guest lost control of a hoverboard near a stairwell. That was all it took. But cruise lines went further, banning even basic electric skateboards and portable vehicles. Now, anything with a lithium battery that moves is off limits. And while it's easy to dismiss, these small rules add up. The freedom to play, to explore, to improvise is slowly being boxed in by caution. Yet some bans are emotional, almost invisible. In 2025, many cruise lines banned public decorations that include political slogans, personal banners, or flags of any kind. Why? Conflict. In a world more divided than ever, ships became microcosms of society, thousands of people from hundreds of countries sharing tight spaces. The smallest misunderstanding could escalate quickly. Now, there are no flags on balconies, no banners, no statements, just quiet uniformity. Cruise ships are floating neutrality zones, by design. But that same neutrality means something else too: control of the narrative. And then there's the sound. In 2025, sound itself became a problem. Too many Bluetooth speakers, too many guests blasting music in cabins, hallways, balconies. It wasn't just noise, it was chaos. So, cruise lines banned all personal speakers. Now, sound must flow only from approved systems. Silence, once natural, has become artificial, managed by invisible rules. One former crew member said, "We used to hear laughter down the halls. Now it's quiet, except for the hum of the engines." That's what the bans do. They create peace, but they also erase spontaneity. By mid-2025, new kinds of bans appeared, behavioral ones. Passengers are now restricted from reserving deck chairs for long periods. Leave your towel too long, and it's removed. Entire no-saving zones were created, monitored by crew with handheld timers. Why? Because passengers were fighting over chairs, literally. Videos went viral. The cruise industry had to respond. So now, every towel left unattended too long gets tagged and taken away. Even elevators became part of the regulation web. Certain cruise lines now restrict crew-only elevators with new locking systems after passengers snuck into them for faster rides. Some ships even use cameras with AI detection to identify unauthorized access to restricted floors. Yes, the same technology used in airports now lives inside cruise ships. And then something more subtle began: bans on certain behaviors that disrupt the cruise experience. That's the new phrase, disruptive. It can mean anything: running, yelling, filming other guests without consent, even lying on deck in ways that block walkways. It's vague, and that's the point. Cruise lines now reserve the right to remove any passenger whose behavior is deemed disruptive. It's their catch-all rule, the power to maintain order in a floating world of unpredictability. One small argument, one viral clip, one mistake, and your vacation can end mid-ocean. Then came the ban that hit families hardest: pool toys. Inflatable floats, giant tubes, and even water guns disappeared from pool decks. Not because of danger, but because of crowding. Lifeguards couldn't see through the clutter, and accidents happened in the spaces those toys created. Now, only cruise-approved floats are allowed, and they're tightly regulated. It's a small thing, but another brick in the wall of control. By late 2025, even personal grooming tools faced bans. Hair clippers, irons, and steamers, all gone. Ships found too many incidents of burns, electrical shorts, and water damage from steamers. And as the rules multiplied, crew members began to feel to change too. They live under the same restrictions, even stricter ones. They can't use certain devices, can't bring outside food, can't access passenger Wi-Fi, can't stay in certain areas without clearance. Life below deck has become a web of protocols where every mistake is logged, every item checked, every step measured. It's not just a cruise ship anymore. It's a controlled ecosystem. But not everything is bleak. Some of these bans have made cruising cleaner, safer, and more efficient. Fewer failures, fewer complaints, fewer environmental violations. Yet the question remains, what is lost along the way? The charm of discovery, the sound of spontaneous laughter, the sense that you could do anything you wanted, even for a week. That's the paradox of 2025 cruising. It's the safest it's ever been, and the most restricted. The ocean hasn't changed, but the way we sail across it has. Because in an age of information, freedom comes with risk. And cruise lines, once symbols of limitless joy, now sail under the banner of quiet control. Every rule, every ban, every confiscated item, it all tells the same story. The ocean remembers everything, and those who cross it must learn to adapt. The next time you step aboard a cruise ship and hear that soft hum under your feet, remember this. It's not just the sound of engines. It's the sound of systems, protocols, and invisible hands keeping everything perfect, or at least trying to. Because out there, where the horizon meets the unknown, perfection is the only safe illusion left. If you love secrets like this, make sure to subscribe, because there's a whole ocean of stories still to uncover.